Hello, my name is Chris Bunce and I'm a member of the consulting team at Advisory.Works. I joined the team in 2010 after a 22-year career in a couple of international consultancies. The last decade of that was as one of the global partners at Hay Group, a strategic HR consulting company. At Advisory.Works, I focus on culture, leadership, and talent management, as well as the strategy and execution that we all do. In today's webinar, if you've got any questions, please enter them in the Zoom chat. My colleagues Logan, Chief Executive of Advisory.Works, and Karina, who is our Operations Manager, will answer them. And at the end of the webinar, the three of us will stay online for 10 to 15 minutes to answer any other questions you have. So today I'm going to cover a topic that is, or should be, very close to the hearts of business owners and leaders: the Great Retention. The Great Resignation is a catchy term coined in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic to describe the situation where staff turnover is up around 40%, and by some estimates even higher, around the 65% mark. This is not only about more money. People have had plenty of time to reflect during lockdowns or while self-isolating, and many have concluded that the way in which they have been required to work is no longer acceptable to them. They are questioning the structure of work and what role it plays in their lives. So right up front, here's a quick exercise for you. Why don't you take just a minute or so to reflect on the high turnover already being experienced by some employers, maybe you as well. But if you're not experiencing it at the moment, ask yourself the question, how well would you cope with 40% turnover? On an episode of The Stream on Al Jazeera entitled The Great Resignation, Tidal Neely, a professor of business administration at Harvard Business School, said 4 things. Number 1, people want better jobs, better arrangements, better wages, and better managers. Number 2, the tolerance for inadequate work scenarios has gone down. Number 3, this is not an era for mediocre or poor managers. And number 4, the employees hold the power today to help frame the type of workforce that they desire. I absolutely agree with what Professor Neely is saying. We really are in unpredictable times. The basic demand for labour is currently far outstripping supply, and we have this fundamental rethinking of work and jobs and careers and lifestyles and balance. I do not believe this dynamic will be going away anytime soon. I put it this way, the pendulum has swung. The pendulum always swings, and eventually it will swing back. But right now, the first and most important thing you can do to win the Great Retention is to accept that the pendulum has swung. Right now, the employees are in control of the employment market. There are a lot of other things you can do to win the Great Retention that I will cover off in this webinar. I'm using a model based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs because I think there is a hierarchy of employee demands that correlate to the Maslow pyramid. For example, at this first base level, Maslow talks about physiological needs: air, water, food, shelter, etc. In the equivalent hierarchy of employee demands, this equates to minimum levels of pay. Despite what I said just now, employees on the lowest levels of pay will move for money. At the moment, they can get quite high increases when they move. And so because they are on this lowest level in the hierarchy, they are moving for money. Strategic Pay is a specialist remuneration consultancy headquartered in Auckland. Their managing director, Kathy Hendry, was recently reported as saying that it is those at the lower end of the pay scale who are finding their incomes boosted the most in the current market. Kathy continued on to say that employees in the lower level roles are getting an average pay rise of 4% this year, compared to less than 1% last year. And that 4% compares to an average of only 1.7% for executives. This time, everyone is invited to the party. Winning the Great Retention at this base level obviously means that you need to make sure that you are competitive in the remuneration market for the types of workers you employ. You need to meet the market to satisfy this most basic level of employee demand. Otherwise, you will lose people, and probably already have. Next, it's very important that you are proactive with the remuneration increases you decide on. Front foot these with your people and implement the increases before they come and ask for one. Reacting to a request does not have the same positive impact on your people as a proactive offer does. And if they come with a resignation letter and an ultimatum, they have made the psychological decision to leave. You may be able to keep them a little bit longer, but in reality, they've left the building, emotionally, if not physically. Next, wherever possible, maintain your margins with price increases. We are observing that now more than at any other time in the last decade, there is a greater tolerance in the market for price increases. We think this is because nearly everybody is in the same boat. Of course, if you are locked into long-term contracts or have a competitor with a 10-starter race to the bottom, you may not be able to move your prices much. But wherever possible, be brave and go for the price increase you need to maintain your margins after remuneration increases. But what if your back is really against the wall? What if your prices are locked in, you are barely breaking even, and there is precious little left to fund these remuneration increases I've been talking about? Here, I recommend that rather than giving everyone a 0.25% increase that no one will value, you target the most critical 5% of your workforce. Those few key employees who make a massive difference to your sustainable financial results. But do not assume they are your executive team or your crack sales team. Sometimes it is low-profile, unassuming employees who make the massive difference. Take time to figure out who really are the ones you couldn't do without. If you are really short of funds, think carefully about who your critical 5% are and target your precious dollars to retain them. In fact, why don't you do that now? Let's pause for a minute so that you can reflect on exactly who your critical 5% are. And I want to use UPS as an example for you. As you know, they're an American parcel delivery corporation. They have a policy of minimizing left turns for their trucks. Now, in New Zealand, of course, they would be minimizing right turns. This strategy is a clever one that means they use 1,100 fewer trucks, 10 million gallons less fuel. Not surprisingly, the relatively low-level analysts who design those no left turn routes are in UPS's critical 5%. They'd be in my critical 5% too. So as you finish up thinking about who your critical 5% are, let's have a look at a list of concrete actionable strategies that we're starting to build so that you can use them to improve your chances of retaining your people. After reviewing the lowest level in the employee hierarchy of demands, we have 4 actions. The next level of Maslow's pyramid is safety needs and includes things like personal security and health. In my hierarchy of employee demands, this corresponds to psychological safety and well-being. Once a person's basic remuneration needs are met, they start looking at how well they are treated at work. I see 4 factors at play here, 2 positive and 2 negative. The 2 positive factors are flexible working arrangements and resilience. The 2 negative factors are burnout and toxic leadership. So the first factor I want to talk about is flexible working arrangements. While I'm introducing this topic, have a look at the highlights of Airbnb's work from home policy on screen. If there is one issue that is the lightning rod for the Great Resignation and hopefully the Great Retention, it is working from home. Let me acknowledge from the outset that working from home is mainly a concern of office workers. As yet, you cannot service forklifts or build office blocks from home. But there are other aspects of flexible work arrangements that we'll be covering off in a few minutes' time. Recently in the news, 2 famous companies have been in the spotlight for their markedly different approaches to working from home. Airbnb is one of them. Their policy was announced by CEO Brian Chesky on 29th of April on Twitter. You could say their approach is extreme. Employees can live and work in any of 170 countries with regular team face-to-face gatherings. They think of requiring regular attendance at the office as limiting their talent pool because employees would need to be selected from within a commuting radius. But they also acknowledge that the most meaningful connections happen in person and that Zoom is not the best way to deepen relationships. The following week, Tesla CEO Elon Musk announced, ironically not on Twitter, everyone at Tesla is required to spend a minimum of 40 hours in the office per week. If you don't show up, we will assume you have resigned. These two extreme examples show that there are 1,000 different possible approaches to addressing the work from home issue. So let's address the two extremes, 100% remote and 100% in the office. Research by McKinsey indicates that only 11% of office workers want to be 100% fully remote, up from 8% pre-pandemic. At the other end of the scale, fully 37% of workers want to be 100% in the office, although this is significantly down from the 62% pre-pandemic. So if you had the impression that you had to copy Airbnb and let everybody work from wherever they want to, that is not reflected in this research. Over half of survey respondents want a hybrid model, which is defined as working from home 2 to 3 days a week. All of this sounds a lot like what we are seeing on the ground in New Zealand. My recommendations on work from home are these. Do not be authoritarian on this. Remember, the pendulum has swung. Listen to what your people want and try to accommodate it. Pay particular attention to what your critical 5% want. Number 2, let go. Let go of the need to be able to peer over the shoulder of your workers to check if they are completing their tasks exactly like you would. They've probably found a better way. Take time to reflect on why you would want a full-time return to the office. Is it because you lack the confidence to manage people remotely? Number 3, don't worry or get annoyed that people do the laundry or go for a workout on company time. That is part of the flexibility that people are crying out for. Most people are willing to make up the time. Most people appreciate the give and take. The bottom line is, are your people delivering the reasonable outputs required of them? Number 4, assuming there is some element of working from home in your policy, provide detailed guidelines on how that should work. You are still responsible for providing a healthy workspace, so make sure you specify what their workspace should look like. Number 5, as Brian Chesky did at Airbnb, also provide details about how workers will regularly connect in person with their colleagues to deepen their relationships. 6, and last, don't be afraid to have a trial period for, say, 3 months. Have a debrief with your people and refine the plan accordingly. There are other aspects of flexible working arrangements that do not have to be exclusively for the benefit of office workers. About 6 years ago, I was coaching a chartered accounting firm who was having great difficulty hiring good people. I suggested that they try a working parent role. So the hours of the job became a 9:30 a.m. start, a 2:30 p.m. finish, and they got all the school holidays off. The CA firm immediately hired the people they needed, reported that the new workers were very productive in their reduced hours, and very motivated to perform well in a role that looked after their family needs. Now, let me admit that yes, those people were office workers, but there is no reason why that type of policy can't be made available to all types of employees. Similar to the working parent role, 4-day weeks in various guises are becoming more popular. The two main options here appear to be, number 1, paying someone 80% of a full-time salary to work 4 days a week, or number 2, setting up productivity Fridays. Here, the employees are still paid a full-time salary. But if they get all their work done by Thursday evening, and by all their work, I mean the amount of work you would expect them to achieve in 5 days, then Friday is theirs to do with as they please. The issue with the latter is the natural tendency for the worker's mindset to creep from Productivity Friday to, I get paid full-time and get Fridays off. You will need to be very firm, especially in the beginning. If someone has not completed all their work by Thursday, they work Friday. And you will need to make sure that your other managers don't take the easy way out and let people off. Is there any real reason why tradies or delivery drivers can't pick up their kids from school? Remember, the pendulum has swung. Having a good employee work for 5 hours a day is way better than having them leave your employment. So I suggest that you talk to your people about what they want. Keep an open mind about their suggestions and requests. If necessary, remind them that they are paid to deliver a certain amount of output. My recommendation is that you judge flexible work arrangements by their outputs rather than their inputs. By which I mean, if someone is delivering the same or better outputs when they go to the gym at 10 a.m., pick up their child at 3 p.m. and then work into the night, then there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to do this. The pendulum has swung. The second factor at the second level of the employee hierarchy of demands is resilience. Resilience is the set of skills that individuals need to have in order not to burn out under pressure. It has been defined as that ineffable quality that allows some people to be knocked down by life and come back stronger than ever. Or, in a nutshell, the ability and tendency to bounce back. Take a moment to reflect on your own resilience and on the resilience of your employees. We can spend so much of our life on autopilot, unaware of the negative emotions that arise naturally. Mindfulness is shown to improve judgment, problem solving, and stress management. Number 2, develop a sense of autonomy, a separation of yourself from your work. This helps us remember that we're in charge of what we do, and we can decide not to take on an unrealistic level of work. Number 3, practice being calm under pressure. A phrase that I use and find helpful often is, what is the worst that can happen here? Number 4, and related to number 3, we can develop the mindset that our goals and stretch targets are not, after all, a matter of life and death. In other words, we develop perspective. Lose the fixed mindset that tells you, if I don't succeed in these 10 areas of my life, I am a total failure. You aren't. Number 5, ensure you have developed meaning and purpose for your life so that you have a broader context for your business endeavors. Number 6, maintain a sense of humor. Number 7, develop compassion, including self-compassion. Note, however, that developing compassion for other people also helps to build your own resilience. By all means, work on these things for yourself and your people, but I recommend investigating specialist resilience training. Until they develop resilience, employees are vulnerable to the third factor in the second level of employee demands, burnout. Burnout is defined by the World Health Organization as a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It is characterized by 3 dimensions. So I hope that wasn't too traumatic, but if you did find that you had some toxic leadership issues in your organization, you might need to place physical reminders around your workplace, maybe little toy bunnies or puppies, to remind you to be friendly, helpful, and engaging, to provide clarity, assurance, clear direction, and encouragement. Coach other managers in your business to make the same transition. The most important performance improvement you can deliver in your business is the elimination of toxic leadership. In summary, employees will stay and commit if they feel like they are being treated well and getting a fair exchange for their efforts. Korn Ferry reports from a major piece of research that 76% of employees who are planning to stay with their employer for more than 5 years believe that their employer shows genuine care and concern for their employees. Only 34% of employees who are planning to leave within 1 year believe that. Okay, here we are, updating our list of actionable retention strategies at the end of level 2 of the hierarchy of employee demands. The third layer in Maslow's hierarchy is often labeled love and belonging. He talks about our general need for friendship, intimacy, family, and a sense of connection. The third layer in the hierarchy of employee demands marks the shift from the basic non-negotiables that will keep you out of the employment court to real leadership. As a starting point, let's review 4 questions from the famous Gallup Q12 engagement survey. The fourth question in that survey says, in the last 7 days, I have received recognition or praise for good work. The fifth question says, my supervisor or someone at work seems to care about me as a person. The seventh, at work, my opinion seems to count. And question 10 says, I have a best friend at work. All but the last of these questions are able to be influenced by each employee's manager. Developing your managers so that praising employees, listening to them, and being genuinely interested in their lives is one of the best investments you can make in your business. Scott Miller, Director of Content at Gallup, he reports that they have found that it takes a pay increase of around 20% to lure most employees away from managers who engage them. Engagement is that powerful. Now, I know that some of your people are being offered crazy money to move. I know some of them are being offered way more than 20%. But if you can help your people feel like they truly belong at your place and are valued, you are going to keep a lot more of them. Okay, so briefly, we are adding staff engagement to the list of actionable retention strategies. At the rarefied heights of level 4, Maslow talks about esteem. This involves respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, and freedom. Level 4 of the hierarchy of employee demands is about your people wanting to be proud of what they do at work. In her book, Grit, Angela Duckworth says that passion and persistence for long-term goals are the keys to achieving high levels of success. Gritty people are able to maintain their determination and motivation over long periods despite experiences with failure and adversity. She continues, and here's the really important thing. Grit is about working on something you care so much about that you're willing to stay loyal to it. The passion that comes from being proud of and excited by what you do is the key to getting really good at it. Of course, if we allowed every employee to create their own job from scratch, doing only the things they had a passion for, not much of the mundane but necessary processing would happen. But here are some concrete steps to take to help every worker feel proud about their place of employment. Number 1, double down on your core purpose. Most leaders with a documented core purpose believe that that is enough to motivate people, but according to Gallup, only 27% of employees agree. Does your purpose make every employee feel their job is important? Do your people believe you and your managers are fully aligned on brand and culture? Are your people held accountable for living your purpose? Is your purpose a priority input into every major decision? And is your purpose upheld every time, even when it costs your business money? Number 2, get real with your ESG strategy, that is your environmental, social, and governance strategy. We are way past the historical point at which you could hire enough people to run your business who didn't really care enough about the environment or key social issues of the day to make a fuss when you messed up. But your people do care if you are not doing anything about effluent or pollution or CO2 emissions. And they also care if your business is not giving back to the community in one way or another. Carefully identify causes you could support that are especially meaningful for your people and commit to supporting them for the long term. Number 3, give people control and influence. The previously cited Korn Ferry study found that 74% of employees planning to stay with their current employer for the long term feel that they can contribute ideas and feel heard by their managers and organization. Having a say in the progress of the company is a clear motivator. Create opportunities for real dialogue and specifically ask for employees' opinions and ideas. Adopt them wherever possible. Number 4, deliver great financial results. People actually like working for a winner. So now our list of actionable retention strategies runs to 2 pages after reviewing the 4th level of the hierarchy of employee demands. At the pinnacle of his pyramid, Maslow talks about self-actualization, a desire to become the most or the best that you can be. In the work context and in the hierarchy of employee demands, This translates into seeing a pathway from where you are now to achieving your biggest career goals. Right now, as I speak, I can call to mind 3 young managers who have no intention of leaving their employers because they and their bosses are very clear about how their development and their careers are mapped out to continuously propel them onward into the achievement of their biggest career goals. The promise of serious development is perhaps the most retention-worthy strategy of all. In their various research programs, different big consultancies point to the ability to grow as the most attractive career benefit. McKinsey identifies opportunities for growth and development with impact and meaning as one of the 4 biggest motivators to stay with current employers. Korn Ferry report that employees who intend to leave their company within the next year are 46% less likely to believe they can achieve their career goals with their current employer compared to those who plan to stay for at least 5 years. Gallup chimes in with the finding that managers who coach their reporting staff are the most successful at retaining them. So engage meaningfully with your people, especially your biggest stars. Paint a picture for them of how their future will map out when they stay with you for the long term. Don't fake it. Give them the truth. What are you really prepared to commit to? Could they reach a senior leadership position? Could they develop their own hugely challenging individual contributor position? Could they even take over from you? And so we finished the 5th and highest level on the hierarchy of employee demands with 15 separate actionable strategies. So there we have the completed hierarchy of employee demands, mirroring Maslow's hierarchy with actionable suggestions at each of the 5 levels. That concludes the webinar for today.